Okay, we're going to go in here and look at some Zoom settings that we may want to adjust on our computer to try to make our meetings with our students just a little bit more secure, and a little bit more user friendly for us as the teacher. So I'm going to go begin by going to Zoom.us, and if you have not logged in yet, you're going to go ahead and you're going to sign in. I'm doing this in the web browser. Okay, I'm doing this in the web browser, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign in with Google. You're always going to sign into your school account with Google, and it takes you up to a screen that looks something like this. And we're going to go down, and we're just going to go down and double check our settings. We have lots of settings here, different areas. These are the security things and that type thing. So the first one that we're going to want to turn on is we're going to want to turn on waiting room. We're not going to want to be able to allow people to get into our meeting without our permission. We can turn that waiting room off once we're in the class, and I will show you that. But let's go ahead and turn on waiting room. And down here, there's some options. Everyone will go into the waiting room. I'm going to go ahead and leave that checked. You could edit these options, but I'm going to leave everyone in the waiting room. So I'm going to cancel that. That's the first one. Now, the next thing I want to go to is audio type. It's in here somewhere, but I'm not quite sure where it is. So a little trick that I'm going to show you is if you go up to these three dots and you go down here to find, and I want to look for audio type. So AUDIO, and it takes me here to audio type. I would suggest that you turn on computer only. There's really no reason for our students to be calling in on phones because we have issued school district computers to many, and the ones that we did not issue computers to have their own computers. This should not affect if a student was joining your meeting on their iPhone through the browser on their phone or through their Android phone through the browser. This would only affect making a telephone call into the Meet. Now, the other time that you might want to change this is parent-teacher conferences. There is a possibility that maybe you have a parent who's going to call in on a phone line, and in that case, you may want to turn that off, turn on telephone and computer. But I would recommend just computer audio. The next one is join before the host. And it's here somewhere also. I'm not quite sure where it is. So I'm going to go up to my little search feature and I'm just going to type the word join. And it came over here and it says allow participants to join before host. I do not want students joining the meeting before I get there. So I'm going to leave that turned off. Remember, if it's gray, it's off. If it's blue, it's on. So I'm going to make sure that one is turned off also. The next one that I think is important is private chat. So let's just put in the word chat. And now, okay, allow meeting participants to send a message visible to all participants. I would leave that one turned on. I would leave that one turned on because there are times when you're going to want the students interacting with the group. But then there are times when you do not want the students sending one-to-one messages to each other. So that one I have turned off, and I would leave that one turned off. This next one really probably isn't an issue, but I'm just going to address it anyways. It's file transfer. File transfer. Do you want kids to be able to send files back and forth in the meeting? A place where that could possibly be a problem is if someone was sending pictures back and forth, JPEG files. So I'm going to leave that one turned off also. If I were to turn it on, I would get some additional options like allow only specific types of files and a maximum file size. But in most cases, I don't see that as being something that the student or even myself as a teacher would need to do. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one off. The only I guess an example where you might do it is if you had a Word document and you wanted to be able to send it to the student. But because we're using Google and everybody has access to Google Drive and sharing, once again, I don't think that's going to be needed. All right, screen sharing. Let's look at screen sharing. Okay, screen sharing. Who can share? Okay, I don't want to turn off screen sharing completely. But right now, probably what I would do is I would say only the host can share the screen. We can change that on the fly in the Zoom meeting if we need to. So I would leave that turned to host only at this point. All right. The next one is annotation. What is annotation? It's when you try to write something on the screen. You're making a note for the students. Um, so if I come down here, and right now I have annotation turned off. Allow hosts and participants to use annotation tools to add information to shared screens. So I'm going to turn that one back on. Okay, allow saving of shared screens with annotations. Oh, I probably could leave that off. And I'm going to go ahead and say save that. This one here, only the user who is sharing can annotate. That's probably a good one to turn on. And that's the reason is I had an experience earlier this year where a teacher was using the annotation feature. This person was sharing their screen, was sharing their screens as writing, and a student then was annotating over the top of what they were doing. We'll tell you that if you want to use annotation with your students, the Chromebooks, the students will not be able to annotate from their Chromebooks. This was a case where a student was using either a PC or a Mac, and they were annotating, and it did not come out as a very well. So we would probably want to only the user who is sharing can annotate. We'll leave that one turned on. The next one is breakout rooms. Really, it's not a security thing. Or no, let's do rename. Rename. That is a security thing. So let's go back to rename. Allow participants to rename themselves. When the students come in, I want them to keep the same name as they entered the room with. I do not want to give them the opportunity to rename themselves. So I have got that turned off. You could turn it on if you want, but I suggest we leave it off. That's rename themselves. Down here, we have breakout rooms. If you're using breakout rooms and it does not show up for you in the icons at the bottom of your screen, it's because you've got this turned off. If I leave that off, you will not see the breakout rooms option. You need to turn it on. And it talks here about allowing hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms before scheduling. The way we have Zoom set up right now, we don't have that ability. So don't worry about that. And then let's just see the other one that isn't really security related, but let's just see if we can find poll. And let's go up here. Polling. Okay, if you want to use polls in your class, and I'll show you that in a minute, this allows the host to survey attendees. This needs to be turned on. Okay, right now it's off and now it's on. So I've made all these setting changes. Okay, so now I'm going to pause this video for a minute, and I'm going to, well, no, let's just go ahead and I'm not going to pause quite yet. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to open up a new meeting. There's one thing I did forget to bring up that I think is important. If we go back all the way up to the top, recording. This is something. Right now, I have all recording options turned off, okay? I've got all these recording options turned off. I would suggest you leave those off. If there is a reason why you need to record a meeting, you can turn it back on. I would not allow the students to record the meetings at any time, but I would leave these also all turned off. These, local recording, what that would do is if you record your meeting, it's going to save on your local computer. Cloud recording, it's going to go out on the web somewhere. I have not messed with that. I don't even know where it goes, to be honest. I have done the local recording. And automatic recording, automatically start recording when a meeting starts. I would leave all three of those off. Okay? There's some other options here, like delete things after a certain number of days, but I suggest you leave those off. So now let's go ahead and open up the client. And once again, if we wanted to start a new meeting, join a meeting, share screen, schedule, that type thing. When you schedule, I'm just going to say here, there's some options that are security related in here. For example, you automatically open up the waiting room. This overrides whatever you put in that other area that we had. That overrides it. So if you had waiting rooms turned off before in the main security settings, this would override it. Under advanced options, Allow participants to join anytime. Once again, those override your other settings. Mute participants upon entry. The authenticated users can join. Right now, the way we've got it set up in Hamtramck, that's not working. So that's those things there that are security related. Let's look here. There's some additional settings in here. Most of these are not security related, but you can go through and take a look at them. Chat. Let's see if I hit chat. It's just, you've already hit most of the security stuff. So these are just things that make your meeting maybe go a little bit easier. Okay. So I'm going to close that. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open a new meeting. Okay. I'm going to, it's not, my camera's not showing up, and that's okay. I know why. It's because I've got my camera working for the recording this as I'm talking. So camera can't do two things at once. If I click here, I can open up the participants tab. It shows who's in the meeting. It shows who's in the meeting. If I hit this is the polls button that I was talking about. It wouldn't have been showing if I had not turned it on. Here's the breakout room. It would not have been showing if I had not turned it on. The other one you probably want to be most aware of is chat. So leave participant and chat open, and you'll be able to monitor your meeting a little bit better. The big thing down here is security, and this is where I was talking. We can override those settings. I could turn the waiting room off after I let everybody in, or I could turn it back on. I can override those earlier settings. I can hide profile pictures. I can allow participants to share a screen. Before, remember I said that the only person that could share the screen was the host. Well, I could let participants share their screens if I turn that on. Once again, I can turn chat on and off. I've got chat turned on right now. I can turn it off. Rename themselves. If I put a check mark there, I just did that. Now they would be able to rename themselves. Now they can't. If I leave this unmute themselves checked, if I mute them, they will be able to turn their microphones back on, and that so forth and so on. Start video. That means participants can turn their video back on and off. So that's that. Now let's pause here just for a second. Okay, I'm back. Let's take a look at now what our students see. I'm actually logged in. I'm remoting into a Chromebook. This is actually the Chromebook. I'm moving the mouse around. I'm going to join a meeting now as a student. I'm going to join a meeting. It's the one I had open a minute ago. Should allow me to. I'm going to put in the ID. This is the same thing as if the student had clicked on the URL in an email or in their Google Classroom. It works the same way. I'm just using the meeting ID. I'm going to put in a password. In this case, it's requiring one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and join. And I am now joined. I'm going to say join without video. You don't want to look at me. And now I heard a beep. Okay, let's go back. Right down here on this screen, it's telling me student has entered the waiting room, but let's go back to the Zoom meeting itself. And let's go back to the Zoom meeting. And as we can see here, this is the actual Zoom meeting. And right now there's one participant waiting in the waiting room. It's student. That's who I logged into the Chromebook as, and that was the name that I typed in earlier when I had to name myself. And I have a choice. I can admit that student or I can remove them. If you remove them, they will not be able to get back in until the next time you start a new meeting. So I would not remove them. I just wouldn't admit them if I don't want it. Well, if you know you don't want them, remove them. But if you think you're going to want to let them in later, I would just leave them up there sitting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to admit the student. Had I had this security setting right here, enable waiting room unchecked, they would have automatically been able to get into the meeting. They would have automatically gotten into the meeting. So now that that student is in the meeting, I can ask them to unmute because right now they're apparently muted. Yes, they are. If we go back, let's take a look. You can see the student is muted. You can see that it's muted down here. So let's just take a look and see what it looks like. I'm going to go back to the Zoom. I'm going to ask them to unmute themselves. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go back to the, and you can see right now, the host has asked them to unmute. I'm going to say stay muted. Okay, that just shows you a little bit of the features. Let's look at some of the other things that you can do with the student. If they're, I can ask them to unmute. If they're misbehaving, I can ask them to start their video up. I could make them a host. I could make them a co-host. I could rename them. I could put them in the waiting room. If they're misbehaving, I would suggest put them in the waiting room. Do not remove them right away, because if you remove them, they will not be able to get back into the meeting. But if there's a reason why they just need a moment to get their act together, I just put them in the waiting room and you'll be able to let them back in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this student in the waiting room. And as you can see, they're now up in the waiting room. If I go back here, you'll see I'm now looking at what the student sees on a Chromebook. Okay, please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon. If they want, they can leave the meeting, but they cannot get back into the meeting again until you give them access. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here. I'm going to go back into the Zoom meeting, and I'm going to go ahead and readmit that student. Basically, once again, those security settings. If we click here, if it's checked, it's active. If it's unchecked, it's not active. So rename themselves is not checked. So the students will not be able to rename themselves. Chat is checked, so the students will be able to chat. We turned off chat, one-to-one chat in the main security settings, so they won't be able to chat with each other. They would only be able to chat with the whole group. Share screen, this allows participants to share their screen. Right now, it's not checked, so the students cannot share their screen. So let's take a look. Let's uncheck chat. Okay. I, as a teacher, can still send out a test chat. Okay. I can hit it for everyone and it comes up. Now let's go back to see what the students see. And you'll see right here, there's a chat message. I don't have it turned on over here. I can click right here and I can see that message that I, as a teacher, sent them. But once again, you can see the host has disabled chat for the attendees. Once again, we can turn on participants here and see who's in the meeting, and we can unmute ourselves. We really can't do anything with these people. We can raise our hand. We can still do yes or no. Even though chat's disabled, we can still do this. We can still use these features here. You'll notice that the students using Chromebooks do not have the emotions feature. I'll show you what I mean in just one second. They don't have emotions. It just doesn't happen to work on the Chromebook. Okay, it just doesn't happen to work on the Chromebook. Let's go back to the Zoom window, just so you see what I'm talking about. This is the, it wasn't emotions, it was reactions. If I click on that, I can put a reaction on the screen, but it does not work with the Chromebooks. It only works with the PCs, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think it probably works with the Macs. So that's that. Let's just do quickly, I could stop my video. I could change some stuff, add filters and backgrounds. It's fun to play with. Let's go to share screen. Let me go ahead and I'll share this screen over. I'll share this screen. I'll share this screen right here, and I will click share. That's one of my screens. Now I have the annotate feature. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this over a little bit, and you can see right here now. You can see the screen that the student's looking at. I'll just move this down here, and I will take this, and I can now, oops, I have to go up here. Oh, no, I have to go here. I'm going to go over here, and I can just start drawing. You can see the annotate feature. This is where I was talking that you probably want that turned off for students. If you want to enable annotate for others, if there's a point where you want the student to be able to annotate, you would come over to these three dots. Okay, and you would click Enable Annotate for Others. Okay, and there's some other things like hide names of annotators and that type thing. But you would click Enable, and then the students would be able to annotate also on your shared screen. So that's kind of just the annotate. But once again, the annotate feature does not work with the Chromebooks. And if you want to erase or change the size of the font, it's all in here. That's something we could hit at another time, because this is basically I got to come over here, wrong screen. This is basically just, we're talking about security. So that's kind of the high points of the security. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.